Take a look behind the curtain with a real whistleblower and American patriot. Prepare to embrace the uncomfortable truth because this program has no time for comforting lies. Here is civil liberties enthusiast, Second Amendment defender, and recovering FBI agent Kyle Seraphin.
Well, hello, my friends. Welcome to the Kyle Seraphin Show. Today is Tuesday. It is April the 1st, and Donald Trump has finally done it. He has decided to gather the militias of Texas, of Kentucky, of Tennessee. They are now gathering outside in Harper's Ferry, just on the outskirts of Virginia, and planning to march on Washington to disband the Congress and the Senate and impose not just a third term, but a lifetime term. Donald Trump is going to cross the Potomac in the way that Julius Caesar crossed the Rubicon and end the Republic. It is now time for the American Empire, I suppose. They were all right all along. Or they were batshit crazy. It is April Fool's Day, and the stupidest stuff is going around right now. I've been playing with it as well, son of a gun. It only works if it's something that people actually believe is real. It turns out that's the nature of April Fools. You have to actually sell a joke that is something that people actually expect to be true. You know, like Garrett O'Boyle and Steve Friend have been made whole, have been reinstated to the FBI with full benefits and back pay in a leadership position. Yeah, I put that out today, and I got a bunch of you. And somebody told me that I shouldn't be playing on the heartstrings of people who have been praying for such a day. I can assure you, my friends have been praying for a day much more than you have. They really have. And we've been hearing this TikTok ever since November. You guys remember this? Like November 6th, everybody said, TikTok MFers. And I said, if we got 30% of what Donald Trump promised, we would be winning. We are winning. I'm not mad about it. I really am not. But for all these people out there who are now going, I saw John Rich say it. I got nothing against John Rich. He seems like a nice guy. But he went out and said, look, we're 10 weeks into a 208-week administration. Take your time, people. There is no time like the present, is there? There's a contract clause that people use. Time is of the essence, and we should probably be operating under that, specifically because as of today, we are going to be talking about two things. One, there's an election that is happening in Wisconsin, and if you are in Wisconsin, you should be aware of that. The second piece of it is there's an election that's going to happen in Florida, a special election which could actually upset the House majority, can put it in jeopardy. This is the kind of stuff that we should be talking about. Again, you never know how much time you have on this earth. You never know how much time you have in power, and there is no reason not to seize it and use it when you have it to make the corrections. Not so you should do vindication or go after your enemies and vendettas. What you ought to do is lock in changes that protect all Americans, including yourselves, especially after you saw what happened in the last 4 years. So we're going to go into that. We're going to talk about equity for speeders. We're going to talk about some of the ICE shenanigans that are going on. The mainstream media is still running cover for MS-13 members. That's pretty good. Going to retouch on yesterday's The End of Western Civilization and Suicidal Empathy. We got a whole bunch of stuff we're going to get involved in. All of those things remind me, and perhaps they remind you as well, that bad things can happen in this country. And they have in very recent time, whether it be a pandemic or a disaster or whatever else. The first thing that happens is the disappearance of your food stores in grocery stores. When disaster strikes, they empty overnight. And the worst time to prepare for anything is during the aftermath of the thing that's going on. It's already too late by then. Smart Americans have been trusting My Patriot Supply. Our family is one of those smart American families, helping them prepare before crisis comes. It was one of the heavier, or maybe one of the more bulky things that I had to move when I changed addresses. I carried an entire trailer load full of food stacked up in their buckets, which are fantastic and easy to move around. It's just a bunch of them. Right now, it's easier than ever to get started. If you want to order the 4-week emergency food kit today, you will get 4 72-hour food kits completely free. That's almost 2 weeks of bonus meals at no cost, and you can scatter them around into your go bag, into your vehicles, into your bug out locations, into your caches where you keep your extra ammo hidden in the backyard, you wild animals that do this kind of thing. I love it. All right, so that's an option. Each of these kits has over 2,000 calories per day. It keeps you going. They are easy to prepare. They are meals that last for up to 25 years, so you've got peace of mind. You can also use them for practice, by the way. You could take them out on a hiking trip or a camping trip. It's real peace of mind, not last-minute panic, no empty shelves, knowing you're covered. It's an insurance policy that you can stock up on today before the deal disappears. So get your emergency food so you have it in place so that if a disaster does strike, you don't have to worry about it. Preparelikekyle.com is the website. preparelikekyle.com, preparelikekyle.com. Claim your extra 12 days of free emergency food plus that 4-week emergency food kit. Preparelikekyle.com. Link in the show description. Let's launch into it on this April Fool's Day. I really do like that tune. I don't know why. It's my favorite. All right, so we're going to get into it, and we're going to start with, how about some clarifications? Always good. The folks that have been crying about ICE deportations are always talking about the same thing. These poor illegal immigrants who broke American law and came to this country in good faith, even though they broke the law in bad faith, and they came over here even though they didn't have a reason to be here, and even though this wouldn't fly in any other country in the world. University of Minnesota, a student lost a visa for drunk driving. Oh, not for protesting. ICE straightens out the record there. We've got more than one of these to talk about. News of the student's detention, and a lack of an official explanation allowed student protesters an expression of concern from the university and political leaders. You mean people jumped the gun before they knew the facts? Oh, crazy. And then the mainstream media jumped on it as well, because remember, just like Jim Comey did. You guys remember the PP take soaps? I don't do Russia all day long. It's just not something I will fixate on, but I will tell you this, and it does seem pretty obvious to me. The media, the mainstream legacy media, is happy to jump on a story when it's convenient. And remember, they can always cover the story that they like, right? They can cover student lost visa because of protests, or what you could say is this, right? Student lost visa because of protests, student protesters say. Administration officials fear, right? They can always couch these things in lying terms because they can actually cover the people that are saying the thing that's not true, and they don't have to actually go debunk it because they're not actually journalists. They're advocates for a position. And the position is, God forbid we let illegal immigrants face the American justice system and get deported. There's some other really interesting stuff. I have a really crazy video out of Boston to play you guys from their local news, and I actually think it becomes a national thought. All right. Some of you guys have already seen it out there in the chat, so that's good too. So this University of Minnesota grad student detained by ICE was taken into custody because of a drunk driving infraction, not because of involvement in protests of any kind. It's not related to student protests, said Homeland Security in a statement. The individual in question was arrested after a visa revocation by the State Department related to a prior history for DUI. Now that hits a little close to me, because when I was probably in my first and or maybe second year working for the FBI, we had a supervisor who by all accounts was a fantastic person. And I'm not going to bring his name into it. It's not relevant at the moment, but if you know the story. And he stopped in the middle of a dark roadway to help a stranded motorist. And so did a volunteer or a professional fire chief. I can't remember if the guy was like a deputy chief or a battalion chief or something like that, but a senior level person within the fire department in the nearby area. Both of them stopped, and a drunk illegal alien hit and killed both of those men. Good people. And that drunk illegal alien wasn't even put in prison for life. And as far as I know, hasn't even been deported. I'll have to go back and look into the story. Driving drunk is not a victimless crime. I saw there was a local mayor the other day. I want to say it was in Rhode Island, Massachusetts, New York, something. One of these sort of commie Northeast. Sorry if you guys live there, but that's what it is. This woman was like a 40-something-year-old drunk driving mayor of a local city, and I didn't even grab the clip. It was actually really painful to watch it. And she's got a toddler in the car, and so the cops are like, "Look, everything's okay. You didn't hurt anybody. It's going to be fine. But how about the fact that you risked all the lives of the people out there while driving impaired? It's not a victimless crime to go out there and get behind the wheel when you're impaired, for anybody who thinks otherwise. So you put people at risk. That behavior has killed others in the past, and it does pretty frequently. How many of us have read that headline before? So-and-so, family of 4, killed, drunk driver, driving the wrong way, and the driver lives. It's always that way, isn't it? The good die young. And some of these scumbags will get off with almost nothing. They'll actually just get charged. They'll say, well, it wasn't reckless endangerment. Really? You got behind the wheel of a big truck? There was a story about that happened in Austin the other day too. Same situation. Drunk driver, illegal alien, shouldn't have been driving, hired on by Amazon. Pretty incredible stuff. You're always putting the public at risk if you do that. And look, you just don't have any right to be here. So the deportation seems like no big deal. That's got these people in a huff. It's got them talking about, while we're talking about cars, let me actually play this clip here because there's no other way to fit it in. I saw this from Fox News. I don't know why, if this lady is like making fun of a thing called speed equity. Yeah, people should pay different prices. If you guys want to see what a America under Gavin Newsom would look like, I guess it would look like this, where we just give up the entire principle of justice being blind and that people standing in front of a court and the court being blind to who they are. Didn't we play that about what happened in England yesterday? That a sentencing council came out and said, basically, if you're a white man, you're going to get really, really hard and stiff sentences. But everybody else that is not a white male is going to get consideration, that basically in mitigation of their crime, they have skin color or an ethnic background that allows them to do that. It's kind of like the clip from that we like to play here from Family Guy. It's the transgender person doing something they're not allowed to do. And it's like, well, I'm transgender. And the guy's like, oh, do whatever you want all the time. Do you really want to live in America where you get special privileges? I thought that was what the civil rights movement was all about. Yes, it was the opposite of that. Do you really want to go to the alternative, which is that if you are someone who has other than white skin, especially the people that listen to this, because I know this is not an exclusively white audience. God, I hope not. Because this is common sense in America. I thought we actually got rid of this in the 90s. We were so close to being a colorblind society before they brought this stuff back. Listen to this. You tell me this. This is the California that I don't live in. I was born in the San Francisco Bay Area. That may not be something you guys all know about me, but my dad used to run a news station there. And it is fascinating to see what used to be a red majority state, the state that gave you Ronald Reagan, some of your favorite president. They're doing this now.
San Francisco is launching a new speed safety pilot program backed by Democratic California Governor Gavin Newsom, where how much you pay for a speeding ticket depends on who you are. And it's all in the name of equity. On its website, the City Transportation Authority goes out of its way to explain that speed safety cameras will be dispersed across San Francisco in a, quote, equitable fashion. But not everyone will have to pay the same if they get a ticket. Get this. Low-income offenders qualify for steep fine discounts, guys, up to half off. And if you're homeless but speeding in your vehicle, you can get up to 80% discount. Jerry, here's just one of the many problems I have with this. The reason for this program, for the speed cameras, was reportedly because of high injury areas, meaning where pedestrians have been hit and killed. So since all lives are equal, why are we giving discounts on speeding tickets when everyone should understand how serious it is to drive safely where people have died?
I couldn't believe this when I read this. I was like, is this really true? We are all equal in the eyes of the law. Oh, no, we're not. We're not all equal in the...
No, we're not, are we? Not at all. What a crazy thought. Now, look, I despise speed cameras. Many of you probably feel the same way. If you didn't see evidence of the crime, I don't understand how they get away with doing that. And theoretically, there's supposed to be a police officer that's going to go and testify that the speed camera caught you doing the thing it did. There's all kinds of problems with this, mostly because I don't want to live in a surveillance state. But I do want you to police yourself, and I do want you to drive safely. I do my best to do the same thing. I rarely speed. I don't have any interest in it. I specifically buy vehicles that don't go fast anymore. That's just kind of my thing. If I wanted to go fast, I would go to a racetrack, and I just don't have any interest in doing that. I actually bought my first truck in the military so that I could not speed. And I think I got one ticket on base where I was doing like 23 and a 20. If you guys have ever driven on a base, you know what I'm talking about, where you get pulled over for going 3 over. And it's probably because my Speedo wasn't calibrated properly in this 1991 single cab, long bed, F-250 steel monstrosity running a 7.3 liter IDI diesel. It was great. And it just chugged along. You could start that damn thing in the 4th gear. It had 5 gears. If you started it in 4th, you could still get off the line. It'd be like, and it would just limp forward, and then it would get going. Yeah, and then I had motorcycles. If I want to go fast, I'm only going to kill me. That was my theory. And that was my theory back in my early 30s. If you want to endanger someone, endanger yourself. If you want to endanger other people, we just had a couple of people killed down the street from us on a big highway, where these 16, 17-year-old kids, high school kids, are driving these souped-up F-250s. They're driving 3/4-ton pickup trucks that weigh 11,000 pounds, and their parents are out there spending this kind of money on them. I used to always hate that. I used to always see irresponsible behavior when parents would go and do this. So how about personal responsibility? How about that? Wouldn't that make more sense? Wouldn't it make sense that if you were a gang member and you were, like, I don't know, involved in criminal activity, whether or not you've ever been convicted, and then you already have been here illegally because you don't belong in my country, do I need to wait for you to actually commit a crime in addition to being here illegally if you're associated with criminality? These people don't have visas. Look at this one. There's the Atlantic is all bent out of shape about this guy. The Trump administration mistakenly deported an immigrant with protected status, but the courts are powerless to order his return. Administrative error sends Maryland father. Of course, he's a Maryland father. Forget gangbanger. Forget MS-13 guy. Maryland father. That's who we're going to talk about here. And I cannot tell you how little I like the way that Maryland operates. Maryland is the first stage of communism when you leave the Beltway. If you drive outside of Washington, D.C., you've got two options. You can head west and drive into America, right? You're going to go over the bridges, over the Potomac, and you end up in Virginia. And even though it is like purplish and stupid in a lot of places, there are regular Americans. You can own guns. You don't have to be worried about stuff like this. And then you can drive north, or you can drive south, and you will end up in Maryland, which is not America, as far as I can tell, having worked a lot of MS-13 in Maryland. The Trump administration admitted that they accidentally deported this guy. So let's read the coverage of it, and then I will show you the case filings, because it's always a good indicator. Trump administration acknowledged in a court filing Monday that it grabbed a Maryland father with protected legal status and mistakenly deported him to El Salvador, but the U.S. courts say they lack jurisdiction to order his return from the mega prison where he is now locked up. That is actually factually true. They did admit an administrative error. The case appears the first time the Trump administration has admitted to errors when it sent 3 plane loads of Salvadorian and Venezuelan deportees to El Salvador's grim terrorism confinement center. I'll show you. That's what you're seeing on the screen right there. That's the picture. By the way, that thing looks like a serious facility. Attorneys for several Venezuelan deportees. How can they afford these? Oh, because American libs are going to fund people who came here illegally, broke laws, and then they're going to say, well, you must do the due process. It's required. Several Venezuelan deportees have said that the Trump administration falsely labeled their clients as gang members because of their tattoos. You know what I found about guys? Sometimes people just get tattoos that say things like MS-13, right, on the back, or MS-13 logos. It's just an accident. They just happen to like the same letters and numbers. It happens all the time. I mean, imagine you guys have been into a tattoo shop before, probably seen a friend getting some tattoos. Sometimes they just randomly put whatever they want on there. Sometimes the tattoo artist just takes liberty and puts gang tattoos on you, right? Give me a freaking break here. Bill Maher was covering for this too. Okay, so that's the story. We've got, do we have another version here? I think, yeah. So this is CNN's coverage of the same story, and then we're going to get to the court filing on it. Trump administration concedes Maryland father from El Salvador, mistakenly deported and sent to mega prison, right? The filing stems from a lawsuit. The guy's name is Kilmar Armando Abrego. Is that right? Yeah. Garcia. Always the 4 names. A Salvadorian national who in 2019 was granted protected status by an immigration judge prohibiting the federal government from sending him to El Salvador. We're going to talk about some of these protective orders and the nationwide injunctions and so on. The filing is the first time, according to The Atlantic, that the administration has admitted to errors in the recent deportation flights on March 15th, although ICE was aware of his protection from removal to El Salvador. Abrego Garcia was removed to El Salvador because of an administrative error, so saith the Trump administration. So let's put the filings up and see what the tail of the tape says. On March 29th, 2019, the Department of Homeland Security served Abrego Garcia with a notice to appear, charging him as inadmissible pursuant to Section 1182 and a bunch of little subsections of Title 8 of the United States Code, quote, as an alien present in the United States without being admitted, paroled, or who has arrived to the United States at any time or place other than the designated by the Secretary of Homeland Security. An illegal alien under Title 8. That's how he was served. During the course of the proceedings, Abrego Garcia was remaining in ICE custody because the immigration judge with the Executive Office for Immigration Review denied Abrego Garcia a bond at a hearing on April 24th, 2019, citing danger to the community because evidence showed he is a verifiable member of Mara Salvatrucha 13, aka MS-13, and therefore posed a danger to the community. The immigration judge determined that he was a flight risk. He appealed, and the immigration appeals, the Board of Immigration Appeals upheld the bond decision in an opinion that was issued in December of 2019, citing danger to the community. Okay, so that's the words. Then we've got the story. But in Monday's filing, attorneys for the government admitted that the Salvadorian man was deported accidentally, although ICE was aware of his protection from removal. This is what they actually say at the bottom. You'll see paragraph 14. Although it says through administrative error, Abrigo Garcia was removed from the United States to El Salvador. It was an oversight and the removal was carried out in good faith. But above it, it tells us that they were aware of the grant withholding his removal. The reference was made on status forms. He was not on the initial manifest for the Title 8 flight being removed, but the manifest didn't indicate that he should not be removed. So they just put him on it. Well, adios, dude. You were here illegally. And then what you get is crying. You get crying from the other side saying that due process is not being filed, that these people, need to be brought back to the United States, even though they were here illegally. That seems like the problem is solved. And then maybe that's where you get this crazy idea that local authorities might also triumph this. The local authorities in Boston apparently just issued a contempt charge for a federal agent. Now, I don't know how this shakes out, but I assume that Tom Homan has been looking for this game. What do they say? Remember Office Space? The Bobs? And they were like, we found out this guy Milton, he was still getting paid, even though he wasn't supposed to be here in the first place. They were just like, some glitch in payroll meant that he was still getting paid. And they were like, so you fired him? And he's like, no. We just fixed the glitch. Did they not just fix the glitch? Yeah, they weren't supposed to deport him, but he accidentally was on the flight. He was in good faith, let's say. Maybe it wasn't in good faith. We don't know. But they've made the argument that it was. They've stated it was. And I don't think they have any way to bring him back. Now he's in prison. Cry harder. Don't come to the United States illegally. Then you won't be there. Milton's problem was, right? He was getting paid even though he wasn't supposed to be there. And they go, you fired him. And he goes, no. We just fixed the payroll glitch. We just figured this will work itself out on his own when he's not paid. And we'll just keep moving him into progressively less and less stable positions. They moved him from the main floor. Then they moved him into a corner. Then they moved him into a basement. Then they moved him into a corner in the basement. And then he burned the building down. So anyway, you think that that might happen? Are these guys going to sneak back in? Hopefully not. Hopefully we're actually solidifying the southern border while we're getting rid of these guys. This is the Boston judge who also feels a tremendous amount of sympathy and compassion and thinks that people who come to this country illegally and get deported because there's a federal statute that does it, that they should actually be held in the United States long enough to be dealt with on local charges. This is suicidal empathy in a single nutshell. And also, there's this weird thing called the Supremacy Clause in the United States Constitution, which indicates when it has to do with federal law, you shouldn't even have any argument. If ICE comes in and grabs you, which is what they did, by the way, they grabbed a guy who was being tried for something else. They arrested him, took him into federal custody. And if they want to deport him, fair play. Go throw him into wherever he needs to go. Get him out. Do not come into the country illegally. And then you won't have to worry about not being able to. He's being tried for a crime here. And they're like, well, he has a presumption of innocence. Well, he also broke the law by coming here. Adios, dude. Check this out. And I feel like this reporter is incredulous at this situation. We need more audacious federal authority used when they actually have the righteous authority. And on matters of border, repelling invasions, like national sovereignty issues, those seem pretty straightforward. Domestically, yeah, pump your brakes. And can you assume that people are illegal from looking at them? Absolutely not. No, of course not. But you can say that if they've already been identified as someone who doesn't have paperwork to show who they are in the United States, does every single one of you, someone asked, how do you prove your U.S. citizenship? It's like birth certificate, social security number, passport. All of you guys have documents. Everybody has a document that shows where they came from. Even my daughter, who was born not in a hospital, who's never been to a hospital, who's never been part of the system ever. It's very easy. You file the paperwork and you get all the documents for them. So if you're not legit in the United States, maybe you get deported. Maybe you get arrested by ICE on your way out of another trial for another crime that you probably committed.
It was a tense and unusual day in court as an assistant district attorney took the stand for questioning. This comes after Wilson Martel LeBron was arrested last Thursday outside of here by ICE agents, even before his trial was over.
Where were you taking him?
New video obtained from defense attorney Murat Erkan showing the aftermath of his client Wilson Martel LeBron after ICE agents took him away last Thursday. Erkan says LeBron was leaving court for day one of his jury trial, where he faced charges for providing false information on his license application. Judge Mark Somerville called an emergency hearing at Boston Municipal Court last Friday, where two state troopers were cross-examined. That continued Monday with an assistant district attorney for Suffolk County taking the stand about what information he knew prior to ICE agents apprehending LeBron in the middle of the trial. More prosecutors were supposed to be cross-examined, but Judge Somerville cut that short.
It's a case of violating the defendant's right to be present at trial and confront witnesses against him. Couldn't be more serious.
Ultimately dismissing the case because of prosecutorial misconduct, pointing out that he doesn't believe the assistant district attorneys took part in the removal of LeBron. He says 2 state troopers and ICE agent Brian Sullivan were to blame, finding Sullivan in contempt of court.
That's pretty wild stuff, isn't it? The judge threw out the case against the guy for providing false documents because he believed that there was misconduct on the end of the prosecutors locally. This is a municipal judge. And then held federal agents who are engaged in their job. This is what qualified immunity is really for, folks, just so you understand. There's all kinds of sad examples of qualified immunity being abused. But when you're doing your actual job under the executive authorities, Article 2 authorities that are given to you through the president of the United States, and it trickles down, delegated to the secretary, delegated to the head of your agency, and then you're going to go out and you're going to be the enforcement end, the execution end of U.S. policy on domestic soil because you have a constitutional ability to do that, and some local judge is going to tell you that you are now in contempt of court and you face like maybe some blue on blue situation where some local cops from Boston are going to go and try and lock you up. What the hell are we doing here? This is a total clown show. Absolutely bizarre. Yeah, I don't even know how you recover from something like that in that area. They are so ripe for just a total breakdown and such a reckoning, I have to imagine. There's just no other way around it. All right, we're going to go to another fun thing because I've got a little discussion from Senator Kennedy out of Louisiana talking about injunctions. This has been the thing, like resisting judges and nationwide injunctions and so on. Before we do that, we're going to talk about folks over at Patriot Protect. The website is patriot-protect.com/Kyle. The issue is data breaches, especially if you have any kind of public figure, if you piss people off online, maybe you follow me and you've seen how that goes. You don't want your data out there just willy-nilly waiting for someone to come in and hack it or grab it or use it to try to exploit something. If you want to stop cyber criminals in their tracks, you want to hide things like full names and social security numbers and home addresses and phone numbers, drug test results, and so on. All of these things can be lost in data breaches. They can end up on the dark web and sold off to the worst kind of people. It's worse than a password leak. It's something that someone can impersonate you, and you don't want any of that. So the solution is using a service like Patriot Protect. Again, patriot-protect.com/KYLE. Both my wife and I are currently using this thing. You want to stop your information. You can't really stop it from being leaked. You can stop it from being spread and being posted. So one of the things they do is the search and destroy protocol that's going to go out there and scrub through hundreds of different data broker websites that are trying to sell it to scammers or offering it for free so these criminals can use things to try to scam you, especially if you have folks that are over a certain age and they're worried about getting phone calls where they don't understand what's going on. This is a real way you can go out there and try to protect them. If you don't choose this service, figure out something. Make sure that you are protecting yourself. It's not particularly expensive. You save 15% by using our promo code. Again, it's patriot-protect.com/KYLE. As always, there's a link in the show description so you guys can use the one right there. We're going to keep pressing onward. This is the question, right? Is there any basis for these judges operating the way they do? And it doesn't matter. We keep seeing hubris and this like sort of fatal pride where local level judges at the lowest levels, district judges, municipal court judges, they want to aspire to something that they really ought not to have. This little telling exchange, it looks like it's not new. Senator Kennedy looks kind of ageless, so I can never tell how old he is or how bad, but it's kind of low quality, kind of low res. But the verbal part of this is very clear. There's no precedent. There's no Supreme Court precedent or case law, which is possibly why we might need to have them step in and say, look, district court judges cannot step in and stop constitutional exercise of authority. What's the basis for the nationwide injunctions these people keep doing? If they don't have standing, if they're not part of a class action, it's a reasonable question that people should have to answer.
A universal injunction is what we call an order from a court enjoining the government in a way that goes beyond the parties to the case, but applies nationwide or in some cases universally to enjoin the government.
Is it sometimes referred to as a nationwide injunction?
Yes, it is, Senator.
What's the statutory basis for a federal judge issuing an order that affects people other than the parties before the court?
I'm not aware of a statutory basis, Senator.
There is no statutory basis, is there?
No, Senator.
What's the United States Supreme Court opinion which interprets the Constitution in a way that allows a federal district court judge to do this? Can you name me that case?
I'm not aware of one, Senator.
There isn't one, is there?
I'm not aware of one, Senator.
Explain to me how this works. How can a federal judge issue an order that affects everybody else other than those in front of him or her? How is that possible?
It shouldn't be possible, Senator, but district courts do it all the time. I think on the theory that the courts need to enjoin a federal policy from going into effect, and they often will enjoin it as nationwide, so all non-parties are protected by that injunction.
I thought that if you wanted to affect parties who aren't in court, you had to file a class action.
That's correct, Senator.
So why don't the federal judges, instead of issuing a universal injunction with no legal basis, tell the plaintiff, look, you got to go file a class action if you want to impact parties who aren't subject to my court?
Senator, the Department of Justice makes that argument all the time in our briefs. I think in many cases, class actions would be inappropriate. They wouldn't, the plaintiffs couldn't satisfy Rule 23 to establish a class.
So they couldn't?
Correct.
So they preferred to ask for a universal injunction?
Yes.
Does this encourage forum shopping?
Yes, Senator. Not only does it encourage forum shopping, but also district shopping and filing multiple strategic lawsuits to find one judge that will enjoin a single policy nationwide. If you have 5 lawsuits, only one of those 5 cases needs to be successful.
Okay, we've established that there's no basis in statute and no basis in Supreme Court precedent for a universal injunction. How about a common law? I mean, universal injunction is basically an equitable remedy. Did this exist in common law courts in England on which our law is based?
I don't believe so, Senator. I think the government has cited cases from the Supreme Court that says, courts are really bound by the scope of relief that a court in equity would have granted back in England before the founding. And the courts at that time would grant relief to the parties in the case, not far beyond
A universal injunction as a remedy is unknown in English common law, is it not?
I haven't done the research that far back, but I'm not aware.
I have. It's unknown. Wasn't part of equity. Only about 27 universal injunctions were issued in the 20th century. Does that sound about right?
That sounds about right, Senator.
But 86 of them were issued against President Trump in his first term. Is that correct?
I don't know the specific number, but they were a high number.
And so
if almost every single time you've used it has been against this guy, the same guy that they think is going to disband Congress and run for the 3rd term and never going to allow another election in America, even though he's like, he's like heading up to 80 right now. Come on now. And so here's another great story of it. Federal judge in California has agreed to delay the Trump administration move to terminate temporary protected status. Now, that's a status that is offered by what? The executive? TPS is an executive policy. It currently shields 350,000 Venezuelan quote unquote migrants from deportation. Another judge at the district level. It's District Judge Edward Chen. He ruled in favor of the TPS holders, saying that the executive cannot change their own mind, that the policy of the president cannot be carried out because of the, because of the equities that are out there. 350,000 people who are here basically on the charity and the goodwill of the American people as granted through the executive previously. It's crazy to me. That's why we had the episode yesterday. This concept of suicidal empathy is not new to you if you listen to this podcast on a regular basis, but it is the end of the West if you go ahead and just give over all the principles of determination, self-determination, and free will and agency, and the fact that you actually have to follow rule of law. We have this really interesting system where we have pushed out the ability to handle justice, to do things which is essentially getting rid of revenge as the way we do business. Revenge is a way of life in many parts of the world, particularly the developing world. It's like, you did this to me, I have the ability to do this to you, right? The strongest person wins. Whoever has the gold makes the rules. The richest people can buy off the system. That still happens, obviously, in every place because corruption is a human condition. But to imagine that you can no longer trust your institutions because we have now taken on all of the values from the places that aspire, that come here because of the way that we are. And we're like, no, we're going to let them change us. What do they always say? If you import the third world, you become the third world. No, not necessarily. If you import the third world and you hold them to the same values, to the same rigorous conditions under which everybody operates, then they will, in fact, probably have to raise their station or leave, or they'll be arrested and deported. But if you go out there and you just empathize with things that cannot be rectified, that you cannot normalize processes in other people's culture. We have a culture. It's a dominant culture. We've talked about this before. This is Scott Jennings on CNN. I don't know if it was timely because this was apparently last night, but we're seeing the same things. I don't know if Scott Jennings has cued his feed to kind of feed him the same sort of information that I have, but he's talking about the same problem we addressed yesterday morning. Here he is talking, essentially not using the term suicidal empathy, but saying that people have done this in the West, and it will be the end of the West if they do it. That's why the November election was kind of a turning point, but it wasn't a solution. It was simply either a speed bump or a deceleration, which is what we're hoping. Now, they can turn it, but first you got to slow down before you turn around, unless you want to flip.
What is the end of Western civilization? Explain that.
I mean, it is the future of Western civilization all over this world is in the balance right now. When you look at what's going on in Europe, they're throwing political opposition in jail. Free speech is under assault everywhere you turn. I mean, everything that we have built in this country, the tenets of Western civilization, the fundamental values that the country has been built on, Republicans and conservatives believe are under assault. The November election was the beginning of the pushback on that assault, but it's not over.
You mentioned
if you look at the headline that's on there, or the chyron, it says Elon Musk House elections will decide the fate of civilization. That's the talking point there. So that brings us to this little discussion here about money. Elon Musk handing out $1 million checks. We talked about a little bit yesterday in an effort to block. There was a court that wanted to block these giveaways, and they said basically they could not, that this is his speech and he's able to do so. He's not buying elections. He's not buying voters. He's just handing things out to certain people. And so the question is why do you do that? Why does he feel like it's worth $1 million to hand these things out? And is he getting his money worth? It's actually worth asking that question. Well, the reason for the checks, Elon explained it. It's better than any advertising that you could do. We used to have this joke in marketing that if you wanted to build awareness of your business, you could start it on fire. You'd go to somebody and you'd say, hey, what are your marketing goals for your company? They say, well, I want to build brand awareness. I'm like, you want people to be aware of your brand? Light the building on fire. You'll get all kinds of coverage. Now, you won't be able to do business because your building will have burned. But people will see your logo, and a burning logo at that, and they will be aware of you. Because you don't want awareness, you want action. So when Elon Musk says that he's doing these checks for awareness, it's not really about awareness. He wants people to recognize a problem, and the advertising is probably cheaper to hand out $1 million to strangers and get that meta news coverage than it would be because he's calling attention to issues. And he's made himself a target at that. Here he is explaining it on a stage in Wisconsin. Why is he in Wisconsin? He's actually calling attention to a Supreme Court race in Wisconsin that most of us probably wouldn't pay attention to if we're being honest. Because we don't live in Wisconsin. Some of you do, but not very many. It's not the most populous state.
The reason for the checks is that it's really just to get attention. It's like we need to get attention, and it's somewhat inevitably when I do these things, the sort of it causes the legacy media to kind of lose their minds, and then they'll run it on every news channel, and I'm like, I couldn't pay them it would cost like 10 times more, or to get the kind of coverage that we get.
So Elon Musk has handed out $3 million checks. We don't know how many millions of dollars he's on the hook for people who signed his petition. He's given $3 million to the Wisconsin Republican Party, its biggest gift ever. And he spent $20 million on super PACs, some of them running ads all over the state, and some of them hiring people from Texas to come to Wisconsin and knock on doors.
I mean, God forbid you let Texans come to Wisconsin. What next? New York billionaires going to Wisconsin as well. People from out of this country that don't even live in the United States offering millions of dollars in political contributions. Mark Zuckerberg going there. I mean, do you see like the pearl clutching is ridiculous. He's calling attention to something that makes perfect sense. I got another good example of this. You want to really put your money where your mouth is? Go into federal court and then tell them no matter what you do, you can't stop me. And why don't you do it for something? What is one of the more patriotic groups of people? If you were ever going to find a group of people flying an American flag, I would suggest to you that if you found people that were rolling around in an RV in America, right? Clarence Thomas style. He's famous for taking RV trips around the United States. If you wanted to find a group of people that love this country, there are probably people out there touring around and seeing this country. Now, some people do it on a cheap, and that is fine, but some people go to major stores. They buy boats, they buy RVs, they buy accessories, they buy things, and they go to a place called Camping World. So I would say if you were going to pick a group of people that were going to go in, Bass Pro Shop customers, they're probably a pretty patriotic group of people. It just turns out they like freedoms, they like America, they like fishing, they like hunting, they like being left alone, right? If you wanted to find people in the RV world, the camping world, that kind of thing, fine, sure, Cabela's, same story. There's certain groups that have built their brand on loving America and experiencing America. How about this little take out of Greenville, North Carolina? There's a Camping World out there, which, like I said, big RV shop. And they're a big shop. I'm sure they put mom and pops out of business, so people might not always like it. But if you got that kind of money, if you got that kind of store and that kind of presence where you physically can run this, you tell me you don't love this. You may not like big stores. I get it. Tell me this isn't the right move for a CEO to stand on principle and say, okay, fine. I'm not taking down my enormous American flag. This is the right move. So come at me and you can't make me stop. I love this. I don't know. I just love it. I caught this clip and I went like, yeah, just do this. Just acknowledge the same thing that the left wants to do. They don't want to play. They want to have judges go out there and issue injunctions. You want people have these petty little nonsensical things about our American flag of all things. What happened to freedom of speech? How about this free speech? Come and take my flag.
Tonight, we are hearing for the first time from the CEO of Camping World about the controversy surrounding the huge American flag and flagpole that his company is flying at their location in Greenville. Marcos Lemonis' interview with WITN comes after the Greenville City Council voted Monday night to authorize the city to file a civil lawsuit against Camping World. Amarache Uche has more after asking Lemonis about the fight to keep the flag up, a fight that he says he doesn't plan to lose.
Not when they sue me, not if I lose, not if they take me to jail. The flag's not coming down.
Camping World's fight against the city of Greenville concerning its enormous flag seems to be far from over, as CEO Marcos Lemonis says it's here to stay. The battle surrounding the flag heated up Monday night after the Greenville City Council voted 4-2 to authorize the city to file a civil action against Camping World for violating city code regarding the size of the American flag and flagpole it's flying on. A vote Lemonis doesn't agree with.
While I respect the city council's position, and while I understand that they have the right to sue me, and they're going to, and I understand that I have the right to defend myself, the flag is never coming down.
Where do you stand on that one? I know a bunch of people don't like big companies, or you had some bad experience with some local manager or something like that. But if that's what your leadership is saying, is like, look, we're in a business area and we are going to express the American flag and we're not going to back down. There's something really wholesome about that. I really appreciate that. I don't know. I just think that's the right way. Sometimes you just got to say, no, this is America. I am going to fly my flag. Screw you. And it's not like he's flying it at somebody's house where it's like blocking out the sun or ruining the view. It's in a freaking business park. Do you guys see the video? If you're listening and you didn't see it, I'll just describe it to you. Imagine a car, like a parking lot for like a car dealership. It's an enormous lot. It's in a business area. It's on the side of a highway and they're flying a huge ass flag. Screw you. Honestly. And you'll notice the same thing is sitting behind Elon Musk, handing out these checks. You wonder, is this a new thing for Elon? This is the thing that I always ask. I was like, I don't really know that much about him previously. Before the left started hating on him, he wasn't on my radar as much. I knew that he had a lot of money. I knew that he was involved in PayPal. I knew some of this stuff. I knew that he was involved in Tesla, and I don't much care for electric cars. I got a diesel. I feel like that makes more sense. I don't like that there's no infrastructure. I don't want to go drive and run out of battery. That seems weird to me and not be able to fix it. So, has he been doing this for a while? These are some pretty telling interviews. This one goes back to May of 2013. So 12 years ago. I'm let's see, I'm not even in the FBI by that point in time. I'm working at a hospital. And they paid back a loan on this day that he was interviewed. It was the day after they paid back like almost like $450 million of government loans. And they did it a decade early. And listen to who he says he's excited about paying back. He's not trying to prove people wrong. He's interested in paying back, I don't know, the country that gave him an opportunity, maybe? Like, I don't know. I'll take him at his word that this is patriotic. He's maintained this for a while. Again, May 2013, not a new clip.
Repaying this loan yesterday, Elon, it must feel good to kind of hit back at the critics like Mitt Romney, who called your company a loser.
Well, it really feels good to have repaid the U.S. taxpayer. That's really what's important here. And we didn't just repay the principal. We actually repaid it with interest and a bonus payment. So ultimately, the U.S. taxpayer actually made a profit of over $20 million on this loan. It really feels good to have repaid the U.S. taxpayer.
Right? It feels good to pay the American taxpayer. It doesn't feel good to be debt-free. It doesn't feel good that we don't have to deal with this anymore. It doesn't feel good that we can go and tell our shareholders something. We paid the people we owed them, and when they made a profit on it, so everybody got a fair deal. That's kind of the argument, right? Isn't that what the best business is based around? It's that there's a value proposition. We're all going to engage in it, and we're all going to do well. And we're happy to do it. We're happy to pay you off because we can afford to do it. How about this one? This is from Scott Pelley, who was so serious when he asked these very serious questions a year later.
Taxpayers essentially loaned you, Tesla, almost $500 million. How much of that do you still owe?
So we paid the whole loan back with interest and a prepayment penalty last year.
Did you have to do that? It wasn't due, was it?
No, it was not due for, I think, another 10 years or something.
Why did you pay it off early?
The taxpayers supported Tesla. We ought to repay them as soon as we can. Since we had the ability to do it and the stock markets were good, we thought, let's pay it back with interest and a thank you note, by the way, which I said, really appreciate it. Thank you.
That seems really straightforward too. Somebody does something nice for you, you write a thank you note. I don't know. I just that's 11 years ago. That's not relevant. The people on the left were celebrating him at that time. Do you remember? And Mitt Romney was attacking him, apparently. It's a really good kind of check on people if they're consistent in their principles. And that's why he doesn't have to go to Wisconsin, but he sees it as a problem. Why? Because they haven't fixed the voting system there. And so you're seeing a story out of CBS here. And is this one CBS? I think it is. No, I think this is NBC now that I think about it. Okay, so NBC story. It's a battleground state. It's going to be a test of Democrat strength in a low turnout off-year contest. Again, we've also got something going on in Florida where that's going to be relevant. Officially, it's a nonpartisan election for the Supreme Court, and yet everybody knows otherwise. And what you see is the classic divide. Wisconsin represents the same problem as America. The problem is people who are urban dwellers who actually, I do understand, have an instinct towards more government. There actually is a reason why you might want some more government. You're outsourcing more of that justice. You're outsourcing more of that mechanism of control to the government when you live in closer proximity to others. Otherwise, you end up with like localized spats. You have to actually have a little bit more the closer you live. And people in rural America, they have a different reality. The reality is, leave me the hell alone. If you can handle your own business, if you have your own food and your own water, you have your own access to things you need, you can work with your neighbors and you can solve your problems, and good fences make good neighbors and so on. You have far less of an interest in the government, and you probably deal with the government far less. This is the way that it's been for quite a long time. The problem is that folks that are in the urban areas want to try to universalize their opinions that the only way to live is the way that they currently live. And this is the divide that we have in America right now. This has been the issue between left and right for at least the last probably 8 or 10 years. My buddy's friend, I actually referenced him yesterday. His father reached out to me. So did he. He said, funny to hear the quote about what happened in the New York Times and his destruction of bomb-making materials in Afghanistan when he was working. And like, yeah, okay. But one of the other things I remember is getting a meme from him. It was an impactful meme. It was the contrast between people on the left, people on the right. If you're on the right, if you're a conservative type person and you don't want to own a gun, then you don't own a gun, right? You know people like this. They're God-loving. They're faithful parents, and they're good spouses. And they just don't think that owning a gun is for them for whatever reason. And they don't. And if you own one, that's on you. They just don't care. In the same way that if they choose to have a certain dietary preference, you ever heard somebody come to your house and go, oh, no, don't make a special decision for me. I always tell people this too. It's like, you don't have to make special decisions for me. I'll figure out something to eat. If you really want to know, I don't eat fish. That's just a thing. I don't eat fish. I'm like whatever the opposite of a pescatarian is. I eat zero fish. Fish are my friends or whatever. I just don't like the way they taste. But you don't have to make something different. If you're making fish, make freaking fish. I'll figure it out. I'll find snacks or I won't eat. I'll go without. I'll be fine. I'll figure it out. That's the way I operate. Now imagine that you're like a vegan and you're a hard leftist and you think everybody should do what you do. I don't own guns, so nobody should own guns. I don't believe in this thing, so nobody should have this thing. Right? There are a lot of people on the left that think that they should universalize their opinion. This is the funniest thing I see about social media. I have a lot of opinions, and you don't have to agree with me, and I don't really care if you do. I'm not asking you to agree with my opinion. I'm telling you this is what it is. Do what you want with that. If that informs yours, great. If it doesn't, great. I don't care. Piss off. You're not going to change my mind about certain things, especially things that are immutable. I don't like female officers in the military that didn't do combat jobs, and I don't like the idea of women being in combat jobs. Why? Because I love women. I don't want them to do that. You don't have to agree with me. Some of you probably are women who were in the military that actually think otherwise, and I don't care. I don't care. I had zero good experiences that way, and there's a lot of men that agree with me. So that's just it. That's what you're uphill against. I don't know that you can make a good argument for why women need to be in those positions, and that should be really important about the mission. I care about mission and outcomes. And I care about safety of women. And if you don't agree with me, that's fine. We can politely disagree because my opinion has no impact on anything in the world. And you trying to change my mind is only going to upset you. It really is. It's like the tar baby. You guys remember the tar baby? I got obsessed with it the other day. I had to explain it to Sarah Gonzalez, I think. The tar baby. It's a great story from the Uncle Remus fables or whatever they are. They're like these like little simple things. They're stories that tell you a broader purpose. It is Brer Rabbit, Brother Rabbit, who goes out there and sees a tar baby. It's a baby made in the shape, or it's a lump of tar shaped like a baby, and it's sitting in a bramble bush. And basically, it doesn't say anything at all. That's me. I'll say things. I just have an opinion. I'm there. That's my opinion. And if you want to go and throw punches in it, you're just going to get all tied up and worn out about it because I don't care. I don't. And most of you don't either. We're not trying to change each other's minds. How many times has someone invited you to change their mind? And when they do, you politely say, this is my piece. And then they say, okay, I'm going to go think about it. That's open-mindedness. We're not even in that world anymore. We're not in the world of good faith discussions. We're not in the world of judges listening and going, look, in theory, this is the way it should work. But in reality, I get it. And so ICE is going to do their job like supremacy steps up. No, the judge issues a freaking contempt order, right? We're in a world where you've got this like goofiness of someone trying to tell you that the local election for Supreme Court in the state of Wisconsin is not partisan. And yet you have this lady who's running and she's representing the Democrat side, whether you like it or not, she is. And she's out there reaching out to billionaire donors all over because this is not a local race. And they haven't fixed the voting issues. And she said specifically that we can turn national elections if you have the right people in the Supreme Court in Wisconsin. That is tampering with our system as it stands. Real issue. I think this clip is correct, so stand by. I'm going to see if I can pull it up.
What's happened is my opponent got caught by the New York Times, of all places, with an email that went out to national billionaire donors that said, come onto a Zoom call, and we'll teach you how taking the Wisconsin Supreme Court can change 2 Republican congressional seats into Democrat congressional seats. And then earlier in the week, last week, our House Minority Leader, Hakeem Jeffries, got caught saying the same thing, that we have to win this race because we can turn these Republican congressional seats into Democrat congressional seats. That has tipped off all this money. My opponent has gotten money from all across America, and 4 out of 5 of her donors don't even live in Wisconsin.
Oh, got it. Okay, right? These people will always campaign on principles and local values and all this other stuff, but they're happy to go to get the big money because this is always a lot broader of a question. And it's certainly not a nonpartisan race. I love this. I love our chat, by the way. I catch like such weird little things. I see people talking about stuff like whether or not I got too much sun. Yeah, I'm out teaching my kids how to ride bikes. I'm trying to live the real life. Like I'm trying to do the thing that I always tell you. I go out and meet my neighbors. I go out and spend time with my kids when I can. I go out and do yard work yesterday manually. I was out digging up weeds. I probably picked up 50 pounds worth of weeds. It's super satisfying. It's way better than being on the internet and dealing with all the clowns that are out there. You know what? I had a random lady, I'll tell you another story. I had a random lady pull up in our cul-de-sac and stopped, and she got out and she said, do you know where the builder's office is? And I said, I have no idea. No, we just moved here. And she goes, oh, okay. And then she told me a story about how she was having problems with her weather stripping, like a complete stranger. And my kids are looking going like, what is going on with this lady? And then she told me about weeding and what to watch out for in the yards and the way that they bury the certain types of, drip irrigation and stuff like that, and where they hide the sprinkler pipes. It was a completely random person pops in and then just started sharing information, because that's what people used to do in this country. We used to just talk. I have no idea what her politics are. I have no idea what anything else is. I don't know if she goes to church or not. I don't know if she goes home and beats her dogs, but she seemed like a nice enough lady. It was a stranger that we randomly interacted with. And if any of us randomly interacted with a complete stranger in the world, the odds are the default position in real America would be to be nice. That's what we would do. And then there's certain people out there that just can't be nice no matter what. They act like one thing and they cannot actually act like the reality of it, which is that, you're going to say these platitudes, go out and live them. Don't go out and break stuff. This came from News Nation the other day. I saw this. First of all, do not get distracted by this woman's painted on eyelashes or eyelids or whatever they are. Eyebrows, I guess. Check this craziness out. Listen to what she says. Property destruction is a perfectly reasonable version of expressing a protest. We're going to cut that to pieces for the last couple seconds here. And then I'm going to tell you why I'm not as worried about Donald Trump crossing the Rubicon and taking and disbanding Congress, which obviously that's a joke. But he keeps saying it. The media cannot figure out how to take this guy seriously without taking him literally. So that's real hard for them. And on top of all of that, we're also going to just do do these people ever listen to their own words and realize how funny it is? She says every life is sacred. You listen to this. You tell me if this woman is not like the poster child for also fighting with people outside of a Planned Parenthood.
Destruction of property is a perfectly viable source of protest. No harming humans, obviously. Yeah. Human life is sacred no matter whose it is. But property these are just things. These are just cars.
No, they're not. There's a reason, as my buddy Steve Baker pointed out yesterday, that people used to hang horse thieves. Do you know why? Because the horse, people don't actually operate like that. Go burn somebody's house down and then tell them it's just things. Do you know how many people are devastated because they've lost things like photographs or a vehicle? Maybe they spent their last dollar on getting this thing so they can run their small business. How many people's businesses are just things? All of them are. And yet they're labors of love. It's the places where they put their time and their treasure. They put all their effort in. It is a time that they will never get back. And you're going to go destroy it because what? You want to make a statement? Every life is sacred except the ones that are unborn, apparently. As I said yesterday, millions of the ghosts of millions of unborn children killed off by Planned Parenthood entered the chat to be able to have a disagreement with you. It's truly wild. They don't care about any principles. And that's why they're pissy about Elon Musk, because God forbid he stepped in and is giving out $1 million, gave $3 million. Meanwhile, the same person that he is the opponent of the person he's campaigning on behalf of did the exact same thing and sent it all to big major donors nationwide. They can't help themselves. Here's why it's not nearly as dangerous as it sounds like it is. This is a good story out of CBS. It's analysis essentially saying special House elections, which are going on in Florida, they rarely favor the opposing party, and they certainly haven't in the last decade or so. So they've seen this done before, even seats that got closer, and we may have something very close with, I think it's Randy Fine that's running out there. And from what I hear, this was not the best move, and people in Florida are a little bit concerned, but you've got Randy Fine, who's a state senator, and a number of MAGA people are very upset about it. They actually had Steve Friend on the list. He was meeting with folks in the area discussing this kind of stuff, whether or not he should run for this House seat. They chose this guy. It will likely stay just based on the odds, but they made a close race unnecessary. They continue to do this. That's the seat that Matt Gaetz left, and then you've got Mike Waltz, both abandoned 2 seats in what they assume are state districts because they were 30 plus Republican, and then these races seem really close by polling. So we'll see. We'll see. That's just, I think a lot of it is also fear-mongering. The last one here, this is the best fear-mongering there is. There's nothing better than this. They can't get it done right. Donald Trump says he's not joking about the possibility of a third term. So they went to constitutional scholars to go ahead and debunk this and say there's no basis that he can do it. He's keeping them focused. This is a laser pointer moment if there ever was one. This is some of my favorite stuff that Donald Trump does. He'll troll them. This is a great troll. This is the same as me telling you the suspendables got reinstated. It's just simple stuff. It's like, hey, look at this. He's calling attention to problems. He's also calling attention to the fact that we have, like, I don't know, like this kind of issue in the country. We have nonprofit votes, groups that are Democrat aligned, so people that have been getting Democrat money, and Democrats, so the same thing. They've been suing the Trump administration over his what? His executive order on election security. This you cannot make up. Requiring people to prove their citizenship when they register to vote. You have to prove who you are to get a driver's license to get what's called real ID. Do you guys know that now? And that's going to be actually required to be able to fly in America. You think that flying is more of a right than voting? Flying, which is not like travel, which is not mentioned at all in that format. It's craziness. It's crazy that you would resist the instinct to secure elections. And there's only one reason why you could do it. It's the same thing that Elon Musk mentions. It's why these guys have gotten on the wrong side of it. It's why I still think they're like 90s Democrats. They're actually saying things that are far more left than many of us would sit if we were being real honest about it. But the idea that you wouldn't want to have secure elections, it only tells me that you think that cheating is necessary, or that insecure elections or questionable elections are necessary for you to stay in power. That should be real problematic for people. Also, on the same vein of what was going on yesterday, we were talking about sort of the destruction that goes on in Europe and the harbinger of what is to come in the United States. Joe Rogan asking questions as usual, but no, this one actually is useful. Why is there not a term for people who are hateful towards Christians? And why do we not have one? And why does the progressive left always go towards Islam, which is like the opposite of progression? It actually is very similar in tactics. It just doesn't have the same values. Listen to this real quick.
Isn't it wild, though, that religion, the absolute most suppressive religion when it comes to women and gays, are the ones that the progressives are so vehemently defending? Like, that's the one they defend over all religions. You can be, like, a leftist will accuse you readily and quickly of being Islamophobic. It's a great thing. You can shut you down. It's a great pejorative. But no one ever accuses you of being an anti-Christian.
Why not?
No one. It never comes up. No one, there's not even a word, right? You can have Islamophobic. Is there a Christianophobic? I've never heard it. What is a word, like a disparaging word for someone who is prejudiced against Christians?
Leftist. That's the word. All right. Here's the cure to leftism. You can just teach your kids real simply. I love this old story from Ronald Reagan. It's kind of an apocryphal story. Whether it happened or not is irrelevant because the truth underneath it is real. This is your palate cleanse for the day. Let me just remind you guys, if you're watching over on Rumble, make sure you like the video. We appreciate that. It's rumble.com/Kyle Seraphin to find the new programs and to find our Sunday sit downs, which are prominently featured on each one. You can find us over on YouTube. It's at Kyle Seraphin. Go ahead and check that out. We've grown. I think we just got a notice. We have 8,500 subscribers over there. So that's finally starting to grow just a little bit. Very cool to see all of you in the chat on that one. The locals, if you guys want to support us financially, if you want to get involved and get the Sunday stuff early, you can go at kyleseraphin.com. And then lastly, if you're sharing this with a friend, send them this simple link. It's kyleseraphinshow.com. That is where we are on Spotify. We continue to grow the audience on Spotify. It's got the best data and the easiest way to track it. So we appreciate that. Make sure you guys comment on this particular story. I know many of you have heard it before. Since we talked about yard work, let's talk about how you red pill your little kids. Kids understand fairness. They don't innately go towards leftism because they understand that there are certain things that are fair. And this story always pointed this out to me. I love it. So here's Ronald Reagan, and welcome to the Republican Party situation.
Recently asked my friend's little girl what she wanted to be when she grows up. She said she wanted to be the President of the United States. Both of her parents, liberal Democrats, were standing there. So I asked her, if you were president, what would be the first thing you would do? Well, she replied, I'd give food and houses to all the homeless people. Her parents beamed. Wow, what a worthy goal, I told her. But you don't have to wait until you're president to do that. You see, you can come over to my house right now and you can mow the lawn, pull weeds, and sweep my driveway, and I'll pay you $50. Then, I'll take you over to the grocery store where that homeless guy hangs out, and you can give him the $50 to use toward food and a new house. She thought that over for a few seconds, then she looked me straight in the eye and asked, why doesn't the homeless guy come over and do the work, and you can just pay him the $50? I said, welcome to the Republican Party. Her parents are still not speaking to me.
It's so good. It's real simple, right? Other people's money. At some point in time, you run out of OPM. And this has been something that people have known in this country, at least since the 80s, at least since I've been, paying attention to anything at all. And Ronald Reagan has a great little story to illustrate it. Even children know what fair looks like. And even children know that why don't these people take care of themselves? If they have the means, why should I go take somebody else? Because I earned it. It's my money. And suddenly you start giving people money. They start having a sense of responsibility. You start trying to take that money in taxes. They start realizing they don't like it as much. It's very simple. You can red pill just about anybody by just giving them the right situation, which is that they have something. They want to make their own decisions and then try to take that autonomy away. Very, very easy. All right. That's it for today. If you guys want to stick around here on Rumble, we're going to dump over to my friends on the American Radicals podcast who did not get reinstated. It is a good April Fool's joke. Hope you have a wonderful day. God bless all of you. Look forward to seeing you again tomorrow. Catch you then.
Recently asked my friend.
That is not my outro.
Thanks for listening to The Kyle Seraphin Show, streamed live weekdays on rumble.com/Kyle Seraphin. Follow Kyle on Twitter, Truth Social, and Instagram at Kyle Seraphin.